There's a moment in every gathering when the room gets too loud, too hot, too much. You know this moment. The voices climb over each other. Someone's jaw tightens. The air itself seems to crack. And then there's you, breathing slowly, lowering your voice when everyone else raises theirs, becoming the cool breeze that settles the storm. You've mastered this dance so well that people have come to expect it, to need it. Thank God you're here, they say. You always know how to handle things. But tonight, as you drive home with your shoulders carved from stone and your chest hollow as an abandoned church, you wonder, at what cost? The question follows you into the shower, sits with you at red lights, lies beside you in bed like an uninvited ghost. Outside, you're the synonym for balance. Inside, you're a question mark wrapped in exhaustion. I want to talk to you, you who learned to be always calm, sometimes by choice, often by necessity. You don't make scenes, you don't break things. You hold it all together with invisible thread, and yet you leave conversations with your jaw locked, your sleep thin as paper, your dreams populated by words you never said. You're proud of never making things worse, and you carry a loneliness that almost no one sees, because how can you be lonely when everyone needs you? There's a word for this: emotional self-regulation, the ability to feel, reorganize internally, then respond. When it's flexible, it protects you like good armor. When it becomes your only outfit, it suffocates. The calm that shields can also silence. Let me offer you a metaphor for our conversation. A harbor. A harbor is meant for arrivals and departures. It's not a wall, not a prison. Here, harbor means the way you stabilize yourself inside to weather storms. When the harbor is alive and flexible, it welcomes different ships: joy, anger, fear, exhaustion. When the harbor hardens into concrete, it becomes a closed dock where only the ship of performance can enter. Everything else, your needs, your truth, your tears, waits in open water, drifting. You don't need to retire your harbor. You just need it to stop working against you. You know these scenes by heart. At family dinner, someone explodes. Nobody ever listens to me. Voices cross like swords. You feel the tide rising, and before you realize it, you're already in containment mode, redirecting conversation, offering solutions, absorbing tension like a sponge absorbs water. At work, the meeting turns tense, deadlines colliding with egos in uncomfortable silence. You weave bridges from nothing, translate anger into understanding, give a little to everyone and everything of yourself. Later, the messages arrive. Thank you for being so level-headed. You send back a smile emoji, and no problem. Your body sends back chest pain. When peace is purchased with your silence, it's not peace, it's debt, and the interest compounds daily. This isn't about romanticizing explosions or glorifying rage. It's about offering you something more nuanced. True emotional stability isn't the absence of emotion. It's the capacity to feel, name, reorganize inside, and choose how to respond. This is our thesis, and I'll repeat it at the end, exactly the same way. Until then, I invite you to look with curiosity and zero guilt at your harbor. What in it is a resource? What has become armor too heavy to carry? Let me tell you about Joseph, not as a perfect template, but as a human mirror. A young man wounded by grave injustices, rejected by his brothers, thrown into a cistern like discarded hope, sold as a slave to a foreign land where even the air tasted different. Years later, imprisoned unjustly on an accusation he couldn't defend against, and eventually elevated to a position of power that would permit revenge on a biblical scale. At each chapter of his story, a choice of response. Picture the silence of that sister, the sound of laughter still echoing from above, casual and cruel, dust coating his mouth like betrayal. terror too large for his body to contain. Anyone could have hardened into stone right there, sworn vengeance, decided to break the world to feel whole again. But Joseph doesn't become stone. He thinks, observes, holds. In the house where he serves, even while wronged, he organizes, becomes trustworthy, helps life continue its course. When prison arrives, he doesn't erase what he feels. He manages it. And when fortune turns, when he stands in the palace with the power to humiliate those who humiliated him, he doesn't strike with cold blood. He tests, recognizes, feels deeply, weeps, and only then reveals himself. Joseph's calm isn't the lightness of someone who never suffered. It's the weighted calm of someone carrying a difficult history and choosing what to do with it. What you meant for evil became the preservation of many lives. That sentence reinterprets an entire story. It doesn't deny the evil, doesn't cancel the pain. It redirects the current. You've probably lived something similar on your own scale. Became the family adult too early. Held everyone together when someone fell apart. Learned to position yourself with presence, but without noise. A great virtue, yes. But what was the human cost? We don't know everything Joseph felt in detail, but we have enough for an honest reflection. Pain without victimhood, power with boundaries, response without blind revenge, neither explosion nor denial. A middle path exists. Maybe you recognize this pattern. You were the steady one when your mother got sick, the mediator when your parents' marriage crumbled, the one who kept showing up to work with a smile while your world was collapsing backstage. You learned that your stability was currency, that your calm was what kept the family machine running. And Joseph whispers across centuries, you can feel the full weight of what happened to you without becoming what happened to you. You can acknowledge the cistern without living in it forever. There's a third way between erupting and disappearing, and Joseph walked it, one careful step at a time. So how does this actually work inside us? Some people are born with nervous systems that simply react less to alarm bells, their internal smoke detectors set to a higher threshold. But for most of us who wear calm like a second skin, we learned it the hard way early. Think about Joseph's childhood for a moment. The favored son in a house full of resentment. Can you imagine the hypervigilance that develops when you're loved by one and hated by many? Every meal, scanning faces for danger. Every gift from father, calculating the cost in brother's rage. The body learns before the mind understands. Read the room, predict the storm, adjust your sails before the wind changes. This is how a child becomes an emotional meteorologist. In homes where love came with conditions, where affection depended on performance, where peace required your silence, your nervous system developed a sophisticated radar. You learned to detect the slightest shift in atmosphere. The way mum's footsteps sounded heavier after a bad day at work. How dad's jaw muscle meant retreat to your room. The particular quality of silence that preceded an explosion. Your body became a finely tuned instrument for reading danger and maintaining equilibrium. From each experience, beliefs crystallize like salt from seawater. If I'm difficult, I lose love. Showing feelings is dangerous. My worth is in solving, not being. These beliefs become strategies. You breathe shallow to stay small. Swallow tears like bitter medicine. Make the joke that deflects tension. Solve everything in your head before it reaches your heart. It works until the bill comes due. And the bill always comes, compounded with interest. It arrives as headaches that grip your skull like a vice. Sleep that never quite restores you, leaving you perpetually running on yesterday's fumes. Partnerships where others lean so heavily on your stability that you disappear beneath their weight. That strange sensation of being a stranger to yourself, as if your voice only exists to soothe environments, never to declare who you actually are. The research is clear and heartbreaking. Children who experience emotional neglect, not the kind that leaves bruises, but the kind that leaves you hollow, carry higher risks for anxiety and depression into adulthood. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk calls it developmental trauma, when the absence of attunement becomes as damaging as the presence of abuse. This isn't to frighten you, but to validate what your body already knows. Feeling doesn't destabilize you, it informs you. Joseph carried this same wiring, even in Potiphar's house, even in prison. He remained the one who organized, who interpreted, who solved. But notice, he also wept. When he finally revealed himself to his brothers, emotion overtook him so powerfully that Egyptian servants had to leave the room. His tears were so loud they heard them in Pharaoh's house. This wasn't weakness breaking through strength. This was wholeness finally having room to breathe. What repeats becomes belief. Belief sustains strategy. Strategy extracts cost. Do you recognize yourself here? You learned a silent lesson. To keep peace, I must swallow myself. Your calm became uniform, mandatory, suffocating. It functions, but exhausts. The same quality that protects you can suffocate you when it becomes law without exception. Here's the paradox that keeps you trapped in your own goodness. You fear that if you relax your grip, everything falls apart. If you speak your truth, you'll wound someone. If you cry, you'll lose the respect you've worked so hard to earn. So you keep the harbor open for everyone else's storms, while denying your own ship's safe passage. Outside, you're the picture of serenity. Inside, you're an ocean without a shore. This is the exhausting mathematics of the always calm. You've calculated that your peace is worth less than everyone else's comfort. You've become a master accountant of emotional labor, always paying out, never collecting. But here's what that calculation misses. When you're always the harbor and never the ship, you forget what it feels like to arrive somewhere safe. Joseph understood this terrible equation. Think about those years in Egypt, holding his identity like a secret wound. He could have exploded when his brothers appeared, could have used his power like a hammer, or he could have pretended nothing happened, served them grain with dead eyes, and sent them away. Instead, he did something profound. He created distance when he needed it, tested their hearts, revealed himself only when the time ripened. He didn't choose between being a wall or a wave. He became something more complex, firm and permeable, like good soil that knows when to hold and when to release. You don't have to choose between being fortress or flood. You can be a harbor with wisdom, strong enough to withstand storms, soft enough to let the right things through. This means allowing your feelings passage without drowning others in them, and without abandoning yourself on some remote shore. Sounds abstract. Let me bring it down to Tuesday afternoon reality. You're in an argument and choose silence. In the moment, it prevents wildfire. But at 2 a.m., you're arguing with the ceiling, your body holding the debate you refused to have. Your chest becomes a courtroom where you're both prosecutor and defendant, and nobody wins. Or this, you're in another meeting where everyone's emotions are spilling like wine on white carpet, and you're there with paper towels, soaking it all up. You smooth tensions, build bridges from broken sentences, translate anger into something digestible. You leave with your chest tight as a fist. At home, everyone calls you when trouble arrives, and you answer, always. Your friends say, I wish I had your calm, and you think, if you only knew the cost. Joseph knew this cost. Even as vizier of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh, he carried his wounds like hidden currency. But watch what he does with them. He doesn't spend them on revenge or bury them in denial. He invests them in something more sophisticated, a test of transformation. When his brothers come begging for grain, he doesn't immediately forgive or immediately punish. He creates a container strong enough to hold complexity, his pain, their guilt, the possibility of change, the weight of power, the pull of love. This is what it means to be a harbor with boundaries, knowing that some ships need to wait outside until the storm passes, that some cargo is too heavy for today, that sometimes you need to close for repairs. Let me paint you a picture of your Tuesday. You're in a disagreement with someone you love, and you choose silence, like choosing armor. In that moment, it works. The conversation doesn't ignite. But at 3 a.m., you're lying there having the argument with the ceiling, your body prosecuting the case you refuse to present. Your jaw aches from words you never said. Your chest holds court with ghosts. Wednesday's meeting, everyone's emotions detonate like fireworks. And there you are with your bucket of water, making it safe for everyone else to burn. You leave with your ribs feeling bruised from the inside. Thursday evening, your phone lights up with someone else's crisis, and you answer. You always answer. You're so steady, they say. I wish I had your calm. And you smile through the screen while something inside you screams. You've become fluent in the language of I'm fine, when fine is the last thing you are. When someone asks if you need anything, your mouth says I'm good before your heart can admit it's drowning. The automatic response is so practiced, so polished, that even you believe it for a second, until you hang up and realize you haven't been good in months, maybe years. Joseph lived this split existence for decades. Picture him in Potiphar's house, managing everything perfectly while his heart hemorrhaged homesickness. In prison, interpreting dreams for others while his own dreams turned to dust. Even in the palace, wielding the power of Egypt while carrying the wound of a boy thrown in a pit. He was everyone's solution while remaining his own unsolved equation. You've become a harbor for so many ships that you've forgotten what it feels like to drop your own anchor somewhere safe. The thought of asking someone else to hold you steady feels like trying to speak a language you never learned. Or maybe you learned it once, but the words got beaten out of you by experience, by disappointment, by the time you reached out and found only air. Your body keeps the score in a dozen small ways. Breathing that never quite reaches your belly, keeping you in perpetual semi-suffocation. Your jaw clenched like you're biting through invisible wire. Shoulders riding high enough to be earrings. The exhaustion that a weekend can't touch. That vacation barely dents. Because it's not physical, it's the tiredness of holding yourself together with both hands, while using those same hands to hold everyone else. Sometimes the suppressed feeling leaks out sideways, snapping at traffic, going cold in conversations, building walls of silence that become canyons. Your body is trying to tell you something in the only language it knows: sensation, tension, exhaustion. It's saying, this calm has calcified into something that's crushing you. Here's what Joseph knew that we forget. Even he wept. 7 times in his story, this composed, capable man broke down and sobbed. His tears were so loud that servants fled the room. This wasn't weakness breaking through strength. This was wholeness, insisting on its right to exist. He understood that feelings unexpressed don't disappear, they metastasize. The question that haunts your quieter moments: how do you remain this steady presence, which is beautiful, needed, genuine, without sacrificing yourself on its altar? The answer begins where you are, not where you wish you were. Start with micro steps. Tiny borders that don't terrify your nervous system into rebellion. Think of Joseph learning to trust again, not in grand gestures, but in small tests. He didn't reveal himself immediately to his brothers. He took months, creating small containers to hold enormous feelings. First, build conscious micropauses into your day. 3 times, maybe when you're washing dishes or stopped at a red light. Check 3 things: your breathing, your jaw, your shoulders. Just notice, without judgment. like Joseph observing his brothers from behind his Egyptian facade. Take 2, 3 deeper breaths. Let your jaw unhinged just a millimeter. Allow your shoulders to drop the weight of one feather. Think, I can breathe before I solve. 10 seconds that can transform a conversation. Second, practice naming what you feel internally. Instead of the automatic "I'm fine," try simple internal sentences. That made me sad. I'm angry about this. I feel alone right now. Joseph named his first son Manasseh. God has made me forget all my trouble. He named his feelings before he could release them. Naming isn't dramatizing. It's organizing the chaos into something manageable. You'll discover that when you name the wave, it loses some of its power to drown you. Third, make one small request per week. Tiny. Can you listen to me for 15 minutes? I can't handle everything alone today. Would you grab milk on your way home? When guilt floods in, and it will hold onto this anchor phrase, asking doesn't diminish me, it humanizes me. The first request will feel like moving a mountain with your bare hands. By the third, it becomes a possible path. Joseph had to ask Pharaoh's cupbearer to remember him. Even in his competence, he knew how to need. Fourth, set one boundary in a quiet voice. Choose something manageable. Declining a favor that genuinely doesn't fit. Adjusting a deadline. Suggesting you take turns with household duties. Speak it with respect and clarity. The way Joseph spoke truth to power. Remember, boundaries don't push love away. They push away excess and exploitation. You're not withdrawing care. You're redistributing weight so the whole structure doesn't collapse. Fifth, revisit your narrative. Ask yourself, channeling Joseph's eventual perspective, what resources did this always come story develop in me? What do I need to stop carrying alone starting now? Joseph could say, what you meant for evil, God used for good, not denying the pain, but refusing to be eternally defined by it. Sometimes writing a single paragraph with beginning, middle, and end can crack open a window where fresh air enters. Here are phrases that belong in real life, spoken softly by an adult who's learning to include themselves in their own care. I'm at my limit today. Can I respond with more calm tomorrow? Or, I want to hear you, but I need to breathe first. It's been a heavy day. Or, I usually try to keep peace, but this situation hurt me. I need to say that. When someone asks for more than you can give, I want to help, and today I can't. These aren't attacks. They're invitations to reorganize the weight so everyone, including you, can breathe. Let's weave this together without preaching. Joseph, the betrayed young man, chose not to turn to stone. The unjustly imprisoned man chose not to be defined solely by injustice. The leader with ultimate power chose not to return evil with evil. At every crossroads, he demonstrates the same pattern. Feel, think, choose. He weeps before he reveals. He tests before he embraces. He speaks truth without humiliation. This wasn't sainthood, it was skilled humanity. Notice how Joseph's calm wasn't manufactured in a moment. It was forged in the system's darkness, refined in slavery's furnace, tested in prison's isolation, and finally wielded in the palace's power. Each injustice could have calcified him into bitterness. Instead, each became a teacher in the art of response versus reaction. When his brothers finally stood before him, trembling, he had every right to destroy them. The beauty isn't that he didn't feel rage, it's that he felt it all and chose differently. Like Joseph, you can't control what was done to you. The family dynamics that made you the perpetual peacekeeper. The relationships that taught you your needs were negotiable. The workplace that rewards you for having no boundaries. These happened. They're real. They left marks. But here's the liberation. You can start choosing how you respond now. Not from a place of denial, but from a place of conscious choice. Joseph didn't erase his difficult history. He integrated it. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Isn't about forgetting, it's about refusing to be frozen in one interpretation forever. You too can start seeing yourself beyond the role of always calm. Your nervous system learned this role for survival, and it served you. Honor that. But survival strategies aren't meant to become permanent identities. This won't transform overnight. Sometimes you'll overcorrect, set a boundary with too much force, and worry you've been cruel. Sometimes you'll retreat into familiar silence and feel like you've failed. This is the dance of change. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, occasionally sideways, fine-tuning. The harbor learns from each tide what it can hold and what needs to flow through. The crucial part: you're including yourself in the harbor you offer others. If someone seems startled by your new edges, remember, they're just adjusting to the updated terms of engagement. The world learns from what we teach it. If for years you've taught that you're infinitely expandable, it's natural for people to arrive with bigger loads. When you say, "I can't carry that today," you're not punishing them. You're teaching them that love has shape, that care has sustainable form. 2 anchors for when guilt floods in. First, the science. Bodies need co-regulation. No one self-regulates constantly without eventually breaking down. The nervous system wasn't designed for perpetual isolation, incompetence. Second, lived experience. Every time you've included more truth, a request, a feeling named, a gentle no, the relationships worth keeping didn't shatter. They shifted, adjusted, found new balance. The ones that only existed because you self-erased might wobble. If they fall, it was honesty protecting you from false contracts, not coldness. Your calm doesn't need retiring. It needs renovating. Less prison, more presence. Less performance, more truth. Less suffocation, more breathing room. Let's return to where we began, the harbor. You don't need to retire your calm. You just need it to stop working against you. Look at your inner harbor and ask, is there a place for me to dock to? Not just everyone else's storms, but my own need for rest, for holding, for simple human tenderness. Joseph's story ends not with revenge or forgetting, but with integration. He brings his father to Egypt. He provides for the brothers who betrayed him. He names his pain and chooses his response. His calm transforms from a survival mechanism into conscious choice, from shield into ground, solid earth, where he can finally rest. This is the inheritance he offers you. Calm as foundation, not fortress. Maybe starting today, your calm can stop being armor and become earth-firm ground, where you also get to rest, where you can plant something that grows for you, not just despite you. If this phrase helps, keep it like a song in your pocket. True emotional stability isn't the absence of emotion, but the capacity to feel, name, reorganize inside, and choose how to respond. I said it at the beginning. I repeat it now, exactly the same way, because some truths need the repetition to sink past our defenses. Here's what I'm asking of you. 1 gesture in the next 24 hours. Choose a micro step that your nervous system won't reject as foreign invasion. 3 conscious breaths before responding to that difficult text. 1 small request for help with something you'd normally muscle through alone. A gentle no to a task that honestly doesn't fit in your already overflowing day. Or simply write 3 lines naming what you felt today. Not for anyone else to read, just for you to acknowledge. Then notice your breathing afterward. Notice if there's a tiny bit more space in your chest, like a window cracked open in a stuffy room. You are not a stone, though you learned to imitate one so well that sometimes even you forget. You became marble to survive the throwing, granite to withstand the pressure, but you were never meant to be a statue in your own life. Joseph wept 7 times in his story. Even the most composed among us need our releases, our rivers, our rain. You can continue being serene. That's a gift, not a curse. But now, let that serenity serve you too, not just everyone else. Let it be a choice, not a chain. Let it include you in its embrace. The path forward isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. The parts you've hidden to keep others comfortable. The needs you've negotiated away. The voice you've softened into silence. Your calm is beautiful. It just needs to make room for your humanity. If this resonates with a tender or difficult place, please consider reaching out for professional support. You deserve the same care you so naturally give others. You deserve to be held while you learn to hold yourself differently. The harbor is still yours, but now you get to dock there too. Now you get to rest.